I'm from Orange County. I live in Southern California, like Surf City,
Okay.
USA, right? So
Yeah.
my kids all grew up going to surf camps, and we go to the beach every single weekend. So until I read your article, though, I hadn't really, I mean, it's not that I hadn't considered it, but I had never really thought of all the reasonings behind why surfing tends to be so, non-inclusive.
Yeah.
And once I read it, I'm much more aware now when I'm out at the beach, I'm watching the surfers, I'm seeing, are there girls out there? Is it all just like teenage white dudes? Like, what's the
Yeah.
deal? So I really thought it was very cool. Can you share with us why you started SurfearNEGRA? And I mean, obviously there was a need that needed to be
Yeah.
filled, but for you, what was your motivation?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank y'all for thinking of me and including me in the conversation. It's super humbling. And to be honest with you, like starting SurfearNEGRA wasn't like I didn't come into the game saying, "Oh my gosh, there's this like huge social gap that we need to address and uncover." I was working in New York for like, gosh, 15 years in corporate. And I ended up taking a surf lesson, ended up relocating to Costa Rica. And it was actually kind of like everyone else in the world. Like it wasn't until like almost 3 years of living in Costa Rica that I actually realized that there weren't very many people who looked like me. And it was mainly because I would see women, that like locust is very loud right now, but I would like see women visit from it, like African American women visit from Atlanta. They would never get in the water. And honestly, like I just felt that the feeling and the peace and the joy that I got from surfing and the water therapy if I had known about it earlier in life, I probably would have made healthier decisions. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, like, let's change this. Out of my own pocket, I decided to like sponsor 10 girls of color to go to a surf camp just to say like, hey, I've shared the love. And the response that I got was huge. So the more I started digging into it, that's actually when I started to realize like why there was a gap in like the social implications and just the legal aspect of, what created our current reality. And once I started learning more about that, especially here in the Jacksonville Beach area, like that's kind of when everything stopped being a hobby and started becoming purpose. And here we are today, like 2 years later. I'm
I mean,
starting the organization.
obviously, from the amount of response, it's clear that there was definitely a need. I mean, clearly, because you've had so much positive response, hopefully all positive, but it's it's amazing to see. I didn't realize you were in Jacksonville. My daughter and her fiance are in Savannah right now.
Oh,
And since they're from here and they're used to surfing, they drive over to Jacksonville quite a bit so they can surf, because the surf in Savannah is not ideal.
yeah, it's not. It's not. Yeah, I mean, actually, East Coast surfing in general is usually not ideal, but we make it work. So.
Yeah, that's what he says. He said it's not like back home, but it's better than nothing. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, yeah, it was interesting. Like the overall response has been good. Like you get people who come to the table where if it's not their issue, then it's not an issue at all. And you have people that say
Yeah.
racism doesn't exist because that's not their experience. And to that, I just have to say that what we're doing is not for everybody. But like you said, like the response, even before 2020 and the whole Black Lives Matter movement was pretty significant. And now after the post the beginning of Black Lives Matter movement, it's insane. I mean, even this season alone, there's one small area in Jacksonville that we got over 350 inquiries to be a part of the program.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
is it mostly kids? What is the age range that you generally serve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the age range we try to focus on is kids ages 7 to 17. We feel like that's like such an impressionable age to develop a relationship with the ocean. Of course, we have a sweet spot for girls of color because we're typically overlooked in spaces and places like this. But our general mission is to make surfing accessible to any kid anywhere. But yeah, like that, to your point, the beautiful thing though about how these inquiries are coming, we we're fortunate enough to partner with organizations like the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA. So they have like our demographic ready made for us, right? So
yeah,
a lot of those inquiries came from like 5 and 6 different locations of the Boys and Girls Club that have access to like 2,500 kids, and just so happened at 350 fit the demographic for that day. So
that's amazing. So what exactly what's behind the name SurfearNEGRA? Where did that come from?
yeah, so it loosely translates from Spanish Black girl surfing, right? So it's like the action of surfing. And you know, in Latin America, most Latin American countries, the term negrita is actually a term of endearment. It means Black girl or Black woman, negra or negrita. And it just wanted to kind of embrace the idea of being a person of color, a Black woman in this space, and take that phrase back and the idea of being Black back and turning it into something positive. Because we should be proud, like we should embrace it. And, you know, even though we're proactively embracing the term Black, it doesn't mean that it's excluding anybody else. It's just embracing it. So
yeah. And it makes sense because the idea kind of came when you were in Costa Rica. So it makes sense that you would go with the Spanish term.
Yeah.
I love that. I know a lot of people that I know here find surfing to be really meditative and kind of restorative for the soul. I've never surfed. I go in the water. I know. Growing up in Southern California my whole life, I've like kite surfed and I've done other stuff, but I've never actually surfed on a surfboard. I don't know why. I think also, you know, when I'm in my mid 40s, right? So when I was a teenager, it wasn't really other than Gidget, that TV show Gidget, there weren't like a lot of girls. So if you went into a surf shop, I mean, the clothes in the girl section were not geared towards activity. They were cute. And none of the posters showed girls actually surfing. They just, you know, so I think it wasn't that I wouldn't have been able to, but I don't think I was super encouraged to try it.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that girls are getting out there and that, you know, the diversity of the surfing community is only going to grow. I think that benefits everybody.
Sorry. Hold on one second.
No problem.
always when I get on the call, hold on. Your question was about surfing being meditative.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I think surfing kind of benefits everybody's mental health is what I've heard, at least. And I love how you talk about how the water and the ocean are kind of supposed to be common ground. So how do you think we can make, you know, the ocean in general, but surfing specifically more inclusive?
It's a great question. So like, you know, it's funny because it sounds like such a basic answer, but it's actually not. And I honestly, it boils down to access and knowledge. I think knowledge of how to appropriately use the ocean and to embrace some of the activities that already exist. And then access in terms of knowing where to go and when to go and how to get to it consistently. Right? Because a lot of times, I'm so sorry for this background noise. A lot of times, you know, we can do, I call it poverty porn, where like people can see the need and see like underrepresented demographics that need something, and they do it one time, take the picture and leave it at that. But,
it's the commercial. It's the commercial with the sad song and the 800 number. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what that is. Yeah, but you know, the therapeutic aspect of being in the ocean comes with consistency and comes with developing a relationship with it. And I think in order to create more access for a diverse set of people, like again, it has to deal with like teaching people how to like develop that relation. Especially ones who didn't grow up around it or who don't have access to a group of people who can bring them to it. And then of course, just consistent access. You know, I do feel like surfing is probably one of the most accessible ways to develop that relationship, because once you have the board, once you have wax, and once you have the basic knowledge, you can still go on your own. And it's pretty, like, you know, the barriers of entry are pretty low.
It's not like skiing where you have to pay expensive lift tickets and you need to get new gear every year and you grow. I mean, it's not like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other beautiful thing about the ocean, like once you have those basic tools for access, then it becomes like developing your own language with the ocean, because she's always different every time you come to it. And like you may be different every time you come to it as well. Like it depends on where you are emotionally, what's going on in life in general. And to have that time and space to just really invest in that relationship, I feel like it's important. And like you said earlier about representation, and like how you didn't really think, even though you grew up in the community that did it, like even though you didn't actually see yourself doing it, you didn't really engage. But the more people who have access and the more people who actually do it that look different, and then other people see that, then I think that's how eventually we'll start to
I think that's key.
inclusivity. Yeah.
And I mean, someone like you being on the cover of magazines and talking about it, I mean, even if you're not in an area where that SurfearNEGRA serves, just seeing it, makes you think it's possible to do that. So I think that's amazing. And I love how much coverage you're getting. I think it's such an important thing to just be talking about and spreading. I think that's great. I think there are
so wild. So wild. I never really thought about it.
It's because what you're doing obviously is resonating with people, right? And that's amazing. I think there are some sports that are still kind of not as diverse or inclusive as they could be. We're getting there, but there are some sports where the community is just they're just underserved. And I think you're right. It could be, a cost barrier. It could be accessibility or representation. So I think that's the only way we change it, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I do think that, especially now in this season of our society, like we're at the point where like we now have language to talk about these types of things. And not, even though like some of it's met with opposition, it's not necessarily, and like we're not having these conversations in a combative way anymore, because it's rooted in history and facts and statistics. And so we're able to now say, okay, wait a minute, like there is a problem. Like let's acknowledge the fact that, all of these spaces are not inclusive, and they should be. So how do we get there? And the crazy part is that it's usually not like a switch. It's not like a turnkey, because a lot of the reasons why our society is where it is because it's rooted in like historical things that took generations to get to where we are. And I think too, we all have to understand like, now we're addressing it and we're talking about it, but it still very well may take generations to change. And I think that's the one thing that I really try to get across anytime I talk to media or press, is that like, this, it's great that we're talking about this and like we're getting all this publicity, but this is going to go beyond me. Like even after I'm gone, we'll still be having conversations. There'll still be opportunities to do better and be better, especially in places like surfing. So we'll see.
It must be really, I can't imagine how that must feel to know that you're starting like this legacy of change in an industry. Really, I think you are. And I think that's amazing. I'm a court-appointed advocate for foster kids. And one of the things I do is try to encourage them to do extracurricular activities. They don't always have, they have to apply for the funds, and they don't always have transportation and things like that. And I really, after learning about your program, I really had to kind of check my own biases and say, am I offering girls only sports I would assume they would want to play versus the whole wide range, or, based on their ethnic identity or whatever it is, do I have a bias that I need to overcome? So, I think everyone is learning and growing, and it's amazing that you're supporting that. And I think the next generation of girls are going to have so many more opportunities. Because
oh my God, that's major actually. And I actually have got goosebumps. I really appreciate you saying that. It like the whole legacy thing. Like I always think about my parents. Actually, I had a conversation with my dad. It's probably been like 10 years ago now, because he grew up in like the civil rights era, and like you had just massive amounts of people who were like sacrificing a lot to make a change for not themselves, but for the next generation, right? And like for a long time, I thought about my generation. I'm like, so what are like we're too busy getting money and like traveling, like doing things where it's like, what are we doing for the next generation? And when this season came up, I was like, okay, like this is my contribution. Like this is my part I have to play. So thank you for acknowledging that. But the second thing is, funny enough, we actually did a lesson for a group of foster care kids last week. And it is interesting. I think we all have certain biases when it comes to like our own experience when we're dealing with kids. And I had to check myself because like I automatically thought like, well, maybe they'll be a little like resistant because of their experiences. And maybe the boys would be one way and the girls would be, and it was like, it completely obliterated everything that I thought would happen, which is a beautiful thing about surfing. It's just like, it shows you that like, you never know. And if you're present, like you can see the most beautiful things happen in life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it really is universal. Surfing, I mean, it can be beneficial to everybody. What are you hoping to kind of instill in the girls that come through your program? What changes are you hoping to see in them?
Man, you just come in with
I'm
the
sorry,
good
I'm hitting you with
questions
the hard
today.
ones today. Tendai, you're partly to blame for this. You helped me with these questions.
I think the biggest thing is acceptance, and mainly acceptance of themselves, exactly who they are, even like where they are in their life. Because especially now, I feel like there's this like really skewed measuring stick that our society tries to hold itself up against, especially with social media, et cetera. And a lot of times it's so anti who we are at our core as humans. And whenever we're in the ocean, like, you know, your hair goes back to your natural state, like whatever, I don't know, superficial layers you put on, like the ocean washes it away. And I feel like after you get out of there, you like to like take a moment and just be with yourself in your most natural state and appreciate it. And I think that is where all of our power, especially as women and girls, that's where our power lies, is like who we are at our core, all the things that the world has told us were weaknesses or that we shouldn't be or that we should change. That's actually our superpower. So hopefully when our girls go through our camps, they get really comfortable with themselves and start to trust themselves as they are, and then move forward from there.
That's beautiful. We have a saying here in Southern California, I'm sure it's not specific to Southern California, but that salt water heals everything. Whether it's sweat or the ocean or tears, one of those three will solve your problem.
Yes, this facts.
So where do you see SurfearNEGRA going in the next, I don't know, like 3, 5, 10 years?
Man,
I'm sure it's grown where you didn't even expect it to, so it's hard to project, but what are your hopes for it?
It's really fun. So I think as a leader of the business part, we really are goaling for SurfearNEGRA to become self-sustainable as an organization, meaning that like we don't have to consistently go out for, you know, donations and grants, et cetera. And I actually see that happen. I mean, like we've run the numbers and stuff. I see it happening as long as we're able to adequately scale our Surf the Turf program in a way that so like I see within the next like 2 years, max 3 years, becoming self-sustainable so that we can consistently offer this program and then also grow it to a point where we're able to maximize our reach. And then we have this like big, hairy, audacious goal of within the next 5 years, actually operating and owning our own wave pools.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That would give you, I mean, access to people who don't live near the water. So
Exactly.
That would be so cool.
Exactly. And I mean, like with the popularity growing and like the wave pool sector and like just seeing the opportunity. And like you said, I mean, we'd be able to reach so many different kids, and not just in terms of like reaching them from like a novice standpoint, but like being on like qualifying series tours where like professionals actually come to these areas and these kids get to see what it looks like to be a professional surfer, and like really being plugged in to the artery of the industry. I feel like won't only be beneficial for diversity, but actually will be extremely beneficial for the industry as a whole.
Definitely. I mean, if I think about how much of this country actually lies on the coast with actual beaches, it's pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would definitely open it up to more people. And I mean, that could lead to better representation within the marketing aspects of the industry. And that is key, right? Everyone has to see themselves represented to feel like it's possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I just feel like it would like push the style and the innovation of the industry forward, right? So like, yeah, we'll be able to, you know, address the social issues that, you know, lie beneath exclusionary sports, but like also just thinking about the different styles that people will be able to bring to the table because of their background of not, you know, trying to mimic what happens at Trestles or in Malibu, but they actually like surf how they want to surf and like what influences them. So I get really excited about that because I almost look at it as like the evolution of an art form.
Right. It seems like in a wave pool too, you'd be able to, like you're saying, control the elements more, where you can do things that you can't necessarily do in the ocean water, because it's based on weather, it's based on tides, it's based on, you know, everything, and you have more control. That would be amazing. I can see the industry definitely going that direction.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, and it's super fun because it's like it just adds another different like skill set and knowledge base that every surfer would need to have, right? So like, yes, you need to be knowledgeable about the ocean and how it moves and how it works, but then like the buoyancy levels and the physics behind freshwater surfing versus saltwater surfing and like how the maneuvers happen. So, and sorry, I'm like getting on my soapbox, but
no, it's so exciting. I understand, because I'm picturing these now competitions across the country. I mean, we get a huge influx of people here in Orange County for the US Open. And it's one of the biggest events here in Orange County every year. Everyone's at Huntington Beach watching the surfers from, I mean, around the country they come. And that's only accessible if you have the means to travel or you live here already. So if we had these traveling competitions, like, you know, X Games style, where it was surfing, that would be so amazing.
Yes.
I'd never even thought of that. That's such a great idea.
Yeah. It's like, and like, I always think, because I had a conversation with one of the engineers behind one of the wave pools, and I just think about like all of the STEM research that goes into some of this stuff, and like how surfboards, like, I feel like as we start to be more inclusive in how we operate, and I know this is not just exclusive to surfing, but the more minds and the more differences of opinions we have in one industry or introduced into one industry, like it's just going to grow in ways that we probably never would have fathomed. So it's like, I feel like my role not necessarily is to like do all the things, but to like create that bridge so that we can start to include these people into the conversation.
Yeah. And my kids are in their 20s now, but when they were young, I taught them that anything you're passionate about, there's a whole industry behind it. So if you love fashion, but you don't want to be a fashion designer, there's a million things that you can do. If you love football, but you're not a good football player, you can still be in the industry. And thinking of the technology, and like you're saying, for these wave pools, that it opens up like a whole aspect of the industry that maybe no one's even thought of if they're passionate about it. And, you know, I'm sure there would be like special boards for that kind of surfing and all kinds of stuff that you could do. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's why I'm excited. What'd you say, Tendai?
I was going to say, just to like jump in. So I'm doing this summer camp close to my house, and it's exactly like what you're talking about. So the other day, that's why my hair's so big. We were out in the water, and like, you know, this little girl, she's like really into water, and she's like learning about like the sand. And I could just envision her like, you know, taking up like surfing, and then like kind of explaining like, hey, you know, at high tide, this is what the water, like what happens at low tide. So like, I feel like, it's like a whole massive umbrella that you can really like kind of like dive into.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I remember, Tendai, you told me you were going to the beach the other day, and I had not realized that there were like beaches. I knew Boston was on the water, but I thought it was just like fishing boats. I didn't know that you could actually go to the beach in Boston. That is so cool.
Yeah, like here, not so much, but like the Cape has like beautiful waves. Like I feel like that's very close to, I guess, where both of you are from, because beautiful beaches and amazing waves.
And also big sharks up where you are.
Definitely. Okay, so Tendai told me about a tote bag that you created in response to George Floyd's murder, and there's a beautiful poem, and at the end it says, "Get comfortable with being uncomfortable." Can you give us more behind that, like what that meant to you, and how does it tie in with your mission?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, tote was so funny. Yeah, the owner of Enact Bag, she approached me and was like, "Hey, like I really want to do something." Like her whole premise or her whole like platform is about acting up and like doing acts of um, I don't know, political acts. But so the poem, honestly, it came to me. I wrote it in like 2 minutes, and it came to me when I was in a space of realizing how small I've been making myself in life to make other people comfortable.
Mhm.
And like yeah, like I said, I'm actually a very tall woman. Like my voice is fairly deep. Like I can throw it really, like I can be really loud. But I noticed that like usually I temper my demeanor, I temper my voice. And when I wrote that poem, I had just gotten fed up in terms of being small. And I started to really realize my power and purpose in this space of surfing. And I knew that it's going to be something that was so different from what people were used to. But I was just like, you know what? It's too bad. Like, you better get comfortable being uncomfortable because this is happening. And it's not just me, it's going to be so many others after me. So here we are, and here we go.
It's never comfortable, I think, being the first person to, have a start something like this, or to be the first person in industry that's calling people out on their, exclusivity. So I
Yeah.
think that's important. Get comfortable being, I like that mantra anyway, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think
Thank you.
everyone in the country right now should be getting comfortable
Yes.
being uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
yeah, it's something we all need to do to get the work done for sure.
absolutely. And Kelly, it's funny because that wasn't just an external statement, it was also an internal statement, right? Because I think all of us are in a space of learning about like where we are and what like the social dynamics have been in the past and how that needs to shift. And so what that means is like, where I was used to kind of playing it small, like to not to have courage in spaces where I usually, diminish or shrunk myself, and to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to have those uncomfortable conversations, to be honest, not only with myself, but with people who are in my circle if I felt like something needed to change, right? And it was never like, for me personally, it was never an indictment on other people playing the victim role. It was like, hey, y'all, like, this can't continue. So like, what do we all need to do in order to move it forward?
Yeah, that's so important. I can only speak for myself, but I have definitely had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable over the last few years, just to make sure that I'm doing the work on myself that I need to do, and being able to speak up to the friends and family and loved ones who,
Mm,
before would, not that they say anything offensive, but they're just not, I see them not doing the work. And we all need to kind of push for that. That's the only way things are going to change. And just
yeah,
examining my own internal stuff that maybe I hadn't even realized I was carrying around with me. It's such an important statement to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And
yeah,
no progress is made if we don't push, right? Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
amazing. I think it's amazing. So, how can our readership and our followers and people, how can they spread the word about Surf Air Negra? How do they get involved if they want to? How do they share the story? What do
Yeah.
you recommend for people who hear this and just get
Oh
passionate
my
about it?
gosh. I mean, like what the kids do nowadays, it's Instagram for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, following us on Instagram, I feel like that's where a lot of our like announcements go out that we would need help amplifying. So it's really sharing our mission and messages on social media. To get involved, like we have sign up forms on our website, so it makes it super easy. And we're actually currently building up our volunteer database, to just like really like engage, because we're starting to finally like move to different states and areas So yeah, I think those are the best ways to help get involved. And, like if people are in a position to support financially, there are like 3 ways that, they can support. And that's also on our website on the donation page. But yeah, I mean, it's just sending good vibes and just amplifying our message right now, because we're in a really good place, thankfully from the community that we've cultivated so far, and we're always looking for more people to come into the community. So yeah.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to include those links in the article,
Okay.
because I know a lot of our readership is here in Southern California, and I'm sure that's something that will resonate with them as a surfing community here. But
Yeah.
I think this kind of message will resonate with everybody. So I'm excited to share it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for including me.
Of course, we were so excited to be able to interview you.
Yeah, and apologies for it taking so long. It's been like maniacal over the past couple of months. So.
That's a good thing. That's a good problem to have, that you're so busy and everyone wants to talk to you. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gigi. And I just love what you're doing. I'm super excited for you, and I'm super excited to see where SurfearNEGRA goes next.
Thank y'all so much. And apologies for West. I call him my intern. He always has to make an appearance on a Zoom call. So apologies for that.
That's totally fine. No, we're big dog lovers. We don't mind at all.
All right, cool. Well, thank y'all. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. If you have follow-up questions, whatever, we're here, okay?
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you again. It was so nice to meet you.
Likewise. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.